Good morning, y'all. As you can see, Dr. Cable's not here. He is virtually with us, though. But yeah, today we're just gonna kind of review some things that we've already learned. We're gonna talk about the midline. So we'll do pelvic girdle, we'll do trunk, and we'll do cervical because they all kind of go together. We'll look at like some individual motions at like just the cervical or just the trunk. And then we'll look at some pictures that kind of show different positions of the body, and then we'll analyze like cervical, trunk, and pelvic girdle all together. Okay, so and what planes can the pelvic girdle, the trunk, and the cervical all move in? Do they move in all the planes, in some of the planes? All the planes, yeah, exactly. So that's something they kind of all have in common, is that they all move in different ways in each of the planes. Yeah, and so yeah, we can say that like the cervical and the trunk can like work together to like have more of a range of motion. And then we can say that the trunk and the pelvis work together as like a force couple. So they work in opposition, kind of like a cap and bottle. Where can we get this? I did not post it anywhere. I will post it at the end of class. So if you just want to like write down your answers or you can take a picture for now, you can, and then at the end of class, I'll make sure it's on. All right, so we'll start with this question. So we'll focus on the cervical, and I just want you to observe what happens from start to finish. And I'll just let y'all take a minute to do that.
Hey, Grace, can I chime in?
Yes, of course.
So this is where I think, first of all, great setup, and I love the practice and you practicing using landmarks with these pictures, and I'm sure your other pictures. But this is to me where somebody who might not be getting as many questions right as they should use their scratch paper, right? So, question number one, where like literally write down what your start position is. And then write down what your finish position is relative to anatomical. And then maybe you could see better the change, right? I'm in Lafayette and I went to Pearl Bridge. I mean, things we've said a lot in class, but I just want to reemphasize that if a student is struggling and getting confused, use that scratch paper in a way that's going to help you. It's like putting the bumpers up at the bowling alley, right? Just making sure the ball stays linear towards its progress to hitting down the pins.
Yeah, exactly. Like Campbell was saying, yeah, the best way to do this is to go from, okay, what are we starting out with? What are we ending with? So what position can we say the cervical is in the start position? Anatomical, yes. And then the finish position? What, flex? Flex, exactly. So from anatomical to flex, we must have flexion of the cervical. Okay, same here. I'm just doing from start to finish. I'll let y'all take a minute with it.
Grace, I'm going to write down some answer choice options for practice real quick and that you could read on Zoom. Like Grace, you've had me for an entire year. Is this not how I ask questions and put in answer choices?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
No.
it can be intimidating on the test when you open or you see a question and like you see all these answer choices and you're like, oh my gosh, this wakes me
Use the
up.
scratch paper, but if you answer it so every question can be uh fill in the blank if you know the question, right? And so the answer choices are telling you where I'm asking, right? There's no none of these, there's no other crazy. So I'm asking you a trunk and I'm asking you a cervical. And if you just answer it like you just told them how to answer it on their scratch paper, then all you got to do is just match up which one is right to the one that says the same thing you're saying.
Yeah, and that's always what I would do is like try to not look at the answer choices and just look at the question first and then answer it because I know myself and I know I'll get tripped up by those kinds of things. But yeah, just like doing it on my own first and then matching my answer is the best thing. Okay.
Yeah, definitely avoid looking at all of the answer choices and trying to just see if it'll like pop out at you. Like you have to know the answer before you start looking at the answer choices because you'll start to get confused.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start by looking at her cervical. So what is her starting position of her cervical? Yeah, it's like kind of slightly extended already. And then what's her finish position of her cervical? Yeah, it's more extended. So from little extended to more extended, there had to be some extension there. So we can cross out a couple of choices already on here if you wanted to. So now we'll observe the trunk. So what is her starting position? So, and it's on the floor. And then the finished position is extended, so must have trunk extension. So the answer is
Answerable extension.
Hey, can we go back to that one real quick, Grace? I just want to bring up what I love what you said about it's a little extended and it's more extended, right? That seems to be things that students will miss where they'll say, well, I'm extended on one and I'm still extended on the other, so I must not have had motion. That's like saying I'm in Crowley, which is west of Lafayette, but now I go to Lake Charles, which is west of Lafayette, so I didn't have to move. I didn't have to move west, right? So I love connecting those layman's terms with our scientific terms. Like, yeah, I'm not an anatomical, but I'm just a little bit extended. And in the next picture, I'm a lot more extended. So I really like that verbiage that you said to emphasize that just because I'm extended in both, it's just her chin is further away from her chest in the finished position. So there had to be motion there. So I really like that a little bit and more. I like that a lot.
okay, so we'll do this one next. We'll observe what's happening at the trunk and pelvic girdle.
Hey, just to let everybody know, and can you take out, because I just would not ask this on the test, because these types of questions are kind of tough to see, and we can answer it. So in other words, don't take it off. We can definitely answer it, but I would not ask pelvic girdle on this one. We can still play with it. We can still answer it. But I just want, people to know that like for this question, trunk 1 gajillion%. But this one's a really tough one to ask pelvis, but we're going to be able to answer it. We're going to be able to look for the clues and answer it.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll go ahead and just take it off now so that whenever I post it, y'all can just.
Yeah. And if in case someone's wondering, it's because remember in class we say, okay, is the pelvis rotating and then what rotated it? And like this one's really tough because it's like, well, wait, hip, hip because the foot's on the ground, trunk because the elbow's on the ground. And so, this is definitely more of a grad class question, which is amazing. But yeah, this one, let's just focus on the trunk because they really need to understand the illusion of the trunk motion on this one. You want me to give some answer choices?
Sure.
Some be some tricky ones in here, but that's good for practice.
All ready for this? Okay, so what is the starting position of her trunk? Right laterally bent, yes, and then her finished position. Yeah, I would say it's between like left lateral, just even like anatomical. It's kind of mostly in line, but yeah, if we went from being right laterally bent to left laterally bent. What kind of motion that's with her? Yes, yes. Is anyone like, is it hard for anyone to kind of see why it's that answer? So I know it's tricky, like, for me at least, whenever I see these problems, I'm like, I really gotta like feel it, because it can be tempting to look at like her bottom hip on starting position and be like, oh, I see a curve here, so she must be bent. Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
no, Grace, you're right. You're right on the money. Just use the landmarks. Her right shoulder is closer to her right hip, you know, and her left shoulder. So like you just think about how her like those 2 points are closer at the top picture than on the bottom picture. They're further away. Like don't look at her arm because her arm's gonna kind of trick you. Just literally look at like her right head of her humerus being closer to her right hip.
Yeah, this is definitely where the landmarks come in handy.
And I'd like to point out for the like answer choices, there's. If you look at it at a glance, you're gonna get it wrong. So you have to be able to like. Know which plane you're moving in and know what those what the verbiage looks like. So like knowing that it's not transverse rotation. Because we have bending, so the transverse is gonna throw you off, but you might just get kind of tripped up, so knowing for sure. That verbiage of its left lateral bending and transverse rotation, that kind of stuff.
Emma, great point. Very, very good point. Rights and lefts mean two different things in two different planes. That's a really good point. Hey, I want to bring up too, if you look at the top picture and you see the white inside of her arm as a triangle, right? So in other words, don't look at her arm, look at the white area as the triangle. Now I want you to look at the base, the bottom part of that triangle, and compare the distance between that top base triangle and the bottom. And look how that distance at the bottom is much greater. That's how you know, or one of the ways to prove that she had to be bent to her right, because those 2 points on the base, her right shoulder is closer to her right hip, because those 2 points on the bottom part of that white triangle are closer at the top than at the bottom. Do you see how like it spreads out, like it lengthens at the bottom of that white triangle, like made by her arms? The white triangle that's made by the pits of her arms. Does that make sense?
I think it does.
Her right, yeah, you see how her right arm forms like a white triangle? Like you could see under her armpit and her hand, like there's a area of white that you could see like a triangle formed by her humerus and her radius and her ulna. Do you see what I'm saying? So the base of that triangle is much smaller at the top than at the bottom. And that's how you know she was closer to her right hip at the top than at the bottom.
Yeah. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. We're getting a lot ahead now, Dr. Campbell.
Yay.
Okay, so. For this one, we'll just. We'll just kind of focus on her cervical and trunk and just tell me what position she's in at her cervical and then.
I want to clarify. I love this question. Let's say frontal, let's just go frontal plane. So mostly frontal. Let's just add that little caveat in there. I'm not going to give answer choices for this one because I still think we need to practice answering them like it would be a fill in the blank. And then once we have an answer, then let's practice creating answer choices. I think that could be a great study tool for the students is learning. I mean, there's nothing special about my answer choices. It's either this way or that way. So we'll just answer it as is, and then we could say, hey, what could be some logical choices that I'm going to come up with.
Right. So what is the position of preserve? Yes, it would be right laterally bent. Yeah, so if you kind of look, her shoulder is closer to her ear, so we can say that is right laterally bent. And then how about her trunk? Yeah, it would be also right laterally bent because her right shoulder is close to her right hip.
And if you didn't see the cervical, I think I did this one with the trunk first, and then her head is still kind of like upright, so like she had to have motion in order to like have her head follow her trunk. So like if you don't see the cervical first, do the trunk first, and then you can go back and see like, okay, well, if her head is still in like the upright position, then how did she have to have, like, how did she have to do that? What position is she in to have her head still facing straight, as opposed to like, if she was, I don't even know how to do this, like, but if she was bent, she would do this,
It's a good point.
and she had to have some kind of motion to keep her head upright.
Really good point.
Different way to look at it, if you didn't see the cervical at first.
Can I ask a follow-up question
Yeah.
on this one? After she kicks, her pelvis is gonna, if she brings her right leg off of the ground and back to the floor, so let's just assume it just all goes back in the frontal plane. Okay, no fancy spin, what kind of pelvic girdle rotation would happen as she comes down? And then obviously her right hip is going to come down, but that's not what's causing the pelvic girdle rotation. We talked about how it's the leg that's anchored, right? So it's going to be her left hip. So I think a great practice question would be to associate pelvic girdle rotation and left hip motion as she comes down from the hip. I'm going to type the question in the comments. Great photo capture, guys. That's a really good one. And remember, some people may think, well, how is it frontal if she's looking, right? Like they may think it's sagittal because of her view, but joint motions are from the joint's perspective. So when we're in anatomical, her hips are facing us, right? Like it doesn't matter where she's looking. Her belly button is facing us. Her ASIS are facing us. All her, that's all facing us. So that's why it's the hips and the pelvis's frontal plane that we're looking at. It doesn't matter that she might see it in her sagittal. All right, guys, let's move on. I know y'all have a lot of cool questions to get to.
Okay, so for me, it's easier to see this motion, like observing it at the end first. So just gonna do that. So when she's coming down from the kick, what kind of motion is happening at the left? Yes, it would be left hip adduction.
Very good.
And then now look at the pelvic girdle. So in this position, coming down. I'm trying to, let's see. Okay, so
Come
in
on,
this,
Grace, we know you can kick up to the ceiling. Come on, stop messing around.
so like her pelvis is starting this way and now it's ending this way.
Yeah, you did it right.
So we started here and then we ended here. So what motion must that have been? Yes, it would have been right lateral pelvic girdle rotation.
Very good. If your team pour, you went like pouring the water out of the bucket. You went from pouring water out the left side to stopping that pour. And the only way that can happen is to have right lateral. If your team spin, then you're just going to see how it would be spinning. Like if it was a basketball, it would continue to roll to her right.
And then we can go ahead and make some answer choices for the first question, if that helps y'all practice. So all of this is in the frontal plane, right? So we can only have right and lefts. So like your first answer choice would be right lateral front and right lateral cervical. Oh my gosh. And then you can do right lateral trunk.
Just a quick note of clarification. So if we're talking about positions, we have to use like the word bent.
Yes. And then left lateral also. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so position, I see what he's saying. Sorry.
Oh, you're good? Because, well, it's not your fault. We had just talked about motion coming down. So that was still fresh in your mind. All good.
And then the other two choices, you would just put the opposite of these two. So you could say left lateral trunk and left lateral cervical. And then left lateral trunk, right lateral cervical.
Yeah. Because in the gist of it, it's really just right, 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 left, 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 right. with with the different options. So that's exactly how we ask questions, is we just try to give you one of each. And I could like Grace and Emma said earlier, I could see how it would be confusing if you didn't know what we're teaching you. But if you know what we're teaching you, this is the easiest answer choices in the world. It can be.
Should we do like some? Yeah, do you have some? I don't, I was just gonna do the half, but I like this. Okay, so I'm gonna give y'all one, just cause the next couple of questions are similar to like the position ones, but we'll just kind of do an illusion one. So we'll observe the motion at the cervical. Yeah, so this is your starting position, and then this is the finish. Start, finish.
I'll do choices. Really good question. Hey Grace, I don't know if you and Emma have a windshield wiper exercise example for today, but that would be a good one to wrap up with. Tell Emma she's got to do it.
They said,
Last time I did it, I was sore the next day. Tell me if I'm not a boomer, as my boys call me.
"Hey, are y'all ready?" Okay, so what was my starting position of my cervical? Yes, it would be right transverse since my chin is looking at my right shoulder. And so if this is the motion, what's the final position here?
Yeah.
Anatomical, correct. So if we had right transverse to anatomical, what motion must that happen? Yes, it would be left transverse cervical rotation.
Great job, guys. Really good job. Some people might say the right laterals and the left lateral cervical rotation is tricky, but like those words don't exist. Like if you know and you study, you should be like, ah, that's just made up words. So you can eliminate those. Okay, let's do feet come up, transverse plane, and I'll write down some answer choices. Okay, so if you guys can kind of maybe explain to them just to make sure they understand the question, I'll come up with some answer choices for pelvic girdle and trunk.
Okay, so we'll do this as our starting position.
Yep.
What happen when his feet come back to the middle?
Yeah, I'll put like A to B and then.
Yeah.
Done. Grace and Emma, I have a feeling we're going to have at least one, I think more than one perfect exams next week.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And Grace and Emma, I forgot who mentioned it last class, but even though you're not lying down, I think it was Emma, you can still practically do this example in your swivel chairs.
This is definitely one of the ones where the swivel chair comes in very, very handy. Y'all need more time or y'all need? Okay, let's start with the inches. So let's start with the trunk. What position is the trunk at in position B? Right. Yeah,
I would say,
that's the left.
well,
Or
wait, sorry, I'm just confused about the A's and B's. So that, we'll start with the A position. The A position is what he said now.
yeah,
And then B will be his anatomical. So if we're going from A to B, we can start with A.
okay, yeah.
So
We'll start with
yeah.
A. He
So
is
how's his trunk?
right.
Use the
transversely
sternum,
right.
use the sternum as a landmark.
Looking at the
Use the
right.
sternum.
Use myself for saying sorry. So if he comes back to B, or what will be the position if he goes into B? Anatomical. Okay, so if we have right transverse rotation becoming anatomical, what motion did we have to have? Left.
Yep, and the position is right transverse rotated. And you're not right, so we're twisted to the right. So we're right transverse rotated. And the only way from being right transverse rotated to going back to anatomical is to twist the trunk to the left. Absolutely right.
So yeah, just that you can then go and cross out. Yeah, what's up?
Sorry, I'm just having a hard time trying to understand why it's right, rotated and up.
So
So if you see like his chin, like his sternum is looking at his right hip. So he has to be twisted to the right. If he was twisted to the left, his sternum would be looking at his left hip.
Hey, I have a different way that might help. Imagine if this person was sitting up against a wall and we're looking down on him. So that blue mat is up against the wall and we're looking down on him. Wouldn't his trunk, like if you didn't look at it like he was laying on the wall, but sitting up against a wall and you look down on him, wouldn't his trunk be twisted to the right?
Yeah,
It's
like
not,
if he was
yeah, exactly.
well, suddenly his legs were over here.
Yeah.
His
It's just-
trunk would
Yep.
fixed this way, but his pelvic is twisted that way, so
Yep.
he's still. It's just a different view of it.
Yeah, I was just trying to think outside the box. Maybe they could see it better that way. But at the end of the day, the answer is if he were to align his spine, I'm sorry, his sternum back with his pubis, let's imagine he could twist his trunk to go back. He would have to rotate his trunk to the left to go back and line up. Like if he could move his trunk, let's say he was just sitting not up against the wall, he could rotate his trunk. He would have to spin to the left to get his arms at a perpendicular T with his legs. So the fact that he has to spin his trunk back to his left to go back to anatomical tells me that his trunk was spun to his right when he started. Remember, it's about we're having Grace and Emma are having the conversation about the trunk. We'll get to the pelvis, cap and bottle, but this is a trunk conversation. So don't let the pelvis mess with you.
Yeah, so like if you were confused about this, you could like even position your chair like that to where, your hips are a little bit that way in line with it and everything. And then you could be like, okay, if I go right even more, like the hips and the trunk are going away from each other. And then like if I go to my left, like, oh, I'm going more into anatomical.
Correct. Correct. One more quick analogy, just to make sure we get everybody on the same page. Let's use our chairs. Hold on to your table and then rotate your pelvis to the left. So go left transverse pelvic girdle rotation. Your trunk is rotated to your right. To me, that's the best way to see it. That it's impossible for your pelvis to swivel to your left and your sternum not looking at your right hip. And then what's cool is if you stay in that position, let go of your desk and now say, how would I rotate my trunk to go back home? You'd have to spin your trunk to your left, which proves your trunk had to twist to the right when you rotated your pelvis.
That made sense to everybody? Are there any other questions about this one? Okay. So, yeah, so we figured out that we have left, right? Oh my goodness.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. Okay, position A is left transversely rotated. And then position B is anatomical, so we have to have right transverse rotation. Now we can talk about the pelvis. So if we have. What's the best way to go?
So remember, the pelvis isn't about necessarily change in position. It's about spin, right? Spin or core. So for the pelvis, it's, hey, did the pelvis spin? How did it spin and what did it spin about? So because the pelvis is never lost. The pelvis is never more in the fetal, less in the fetal. So for the pelvis, it's all about seeing the spin and then what joint motion spun it. So you already did what joint motion spun it. The left transverse trunk rotation spun the pelvis, but now we just got to say, hey, did the pelvis spin to the right transversely or did it spin to the left transversely?
Right, okay, so in position A, where is the pelvis? It's gonna be transfer, yeah. So left transversely rotated, and then we said that B is anatomical. B is anatomical for both the trunk and the pelvis. So in order to come back, what had to happen? What motion had to happen to get this person from A to B? Right transverse rotation.
Good. Good. Because remember, guys, the cap and bottle, I think, really illustrates it. If you had look, I'm going to get my water bottle. If you spun both of them relatively the same, you'd never drink from the water. They have to spin in opposition. The cap either spins to the left or the bottle spins to the right. You get the same motion, opening the bottle or closing the bottle. And that's what's happening here is the pelvis is rotating to the right and thus the trunk has to rotate to its left.
Yeah.
Now, Emma or Grace, do an example real quick standing where the pelvis and trunk can move in the same direction, but it's a totally different function. Like you're trying to look behind you, right? Like if the pelvis rotates to the left and your trunk rotates to your left, like you can do that motion, but you can't do it in this example because the ground isn't going to let you, right? You're anchoring that upper part, so that's why they have to move in opposition in this example.
Does that make sense to everybody? Right.
It was the initial A position was the trunk was right transversely rotated. Yeah. I know that got kind of like confusing. We did a lot of talk about that rights and lefts.
Hiccup, I know we only have a couple of minutes. Can you find a rotation stretch on the ground? I think this will really help illustrate. Like just go to Google and find like somebody doing a rotation stretch on the ground. I think this will really help because, obviously in the windshield, you're not all the way. But like, I think that's a really good one where the whole point of them doing that stretch is to twist the trunk. Like the trunk has to be twisted. And so we as allied healthcare professionals have to be able to see how it's really twisted when well, I know for a fact it's tough for non-trained people to even acknowledge that the trunk is twisted. So that'll be our last question of the day. How is the trunk rotated? How is it twisted? Using landmarks, because this is really tough to see if we don't have tools to be able to see it. And eventually, as you get better and you do more practice, you may not need to rely on the landmarks. But I've been doing this for 30 years and I still use my landmarks because human motion is tricky.
Okay, so we don't have a whole lot of time, but we can talk through this one together. So where is she? Where is her sternum compared to her hip?
Good question.
Landmark. So she is. Let's see if I can get in the same position as her to figure out which side we're looking at. Okay. So she is looking over her left.
Good. Absolutely.
Her sternum and her hip, her left hip are in line. So what position is she in? Left transverse.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. And for her to do that, for her to twist her trunk to her left, she had to rotate her pelvis to the right. That's where we're trying to bring it home here, that her pelvis had to have right transverse spin in order for her trunk to have left transverse spin.
Yeah, I was gonna do my point two. Okay,
Very, very good point.
perfect. If I don't have any other questions, Dr. Campbell, do you have any last words before we?
No, I just want to say I'm proud of you guys. Y'all had great questions. You explained them real well. You're on point. You guys really know your stuff, and I'm proud of you.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Dr. Campbell. All right,
All right,
we'll
guys.
see.
You have a good day.
And keep reaching out to us and Dr. Campbell if y'all have questions.